Hey, my name is Crunk Chocolate, and welcome to End of Season Report, part of Shades of Blues content season. Streaming live on FanFest. Shout out to all our patronies watching us as well. It's the off season, so they can bring on some people. We can relax on the tribalism. So here I am with some of my favorite people talking about clubs in the Premier League or Women's Super League. Today, we talk the team who beat us in the final.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Don't worry, I will. I bring it up to make it appear that I'm not hurt or upset about it at all. Oh, man. The only trophy we could have won. So because of Crystal Palace, our season has been a complete failure. It's all your fault. No, none of it's going on us at all. Nope, no looking inward or accountability on my end. I'm completely just blaming Crystal Palace. You're welcome.
Oh, well, I won't apologize for it. I will certainly acknowledge some fortunate circumstances. The game had to have played out in that way for it to happen. We did still have quite a traditional, quite an old school controversy. You don't tend to get those kind of outlandishly crazy ones in a post VAR world, but somehow we still did. But yeah, I can acknowledge that while still being kind of very unapologetic. It was the best day of my life.
As you shouldn't be. Don't apologize for anything. This person, our guest today, shout out 5-year plan, our Crystal Palace go-to person, shout out Shady Gang. There you go. Give it up. Joe. Oh, Joe Walker. Oh, Joe Walker.
Thank you very much.
Oh man, before we went live, I was talking about how Mainz is melting. It's warm in England, and basically their homes are built to, I guess, take them out during the summer. And here I am in America and having this nice, cool air blown on me, and I will say it's 82 degrees. So I do have the air on. I grew up Southern, and I never really experienced AC, and now I do that thing where I try to hold on and not use it as long as possible, but it's whatever. But we're not here to talk about how hot and or cold we are. We're here to talk about Crystal Palace's 24-25 season. The way that this works, there are 5 categories: kits, manager, squad, supporters, and front office. Joe will be grading each category for us, A through F. Feel free to use pluses or minuses. Sometimes it can save a score from being so bad, or sometimes they did so well in a certain category, which they might. You want to just plus it out, show them some love. The way that this is going to work is we're going to start with the kits, something fun, the good vibes, and so I will have you rate or grade the home kit. We'll start with home. We'll do home, away, and third kit, and give us a score for the home one.
Oh. So we've mentioned it now because of the cup win, because it's now the best season in our history by default. It does raise the grades of the kits that are worn in that. Even if in the case of the home Palace kit this season, it is an incredibly cheap design. I personally, I think I enjoy the Palace home shirt. I do think it is something that you see occasionally on a bad targeted Instagram advert where it's like you can't really tell to look at it from a distance, but the Palace home shirt this season, if you look up close, it's a lot of it's like basically the Palace logo, the eagle, layered on top of each other in hundreds of ways. So instead of stripes, it's just a lot of eagles overlaid on each other,
and they're twisted all over. So it's kind of crazy. It's a little wild, and then the red looks like it's like paint exploding. It's
very Hawaiian shirt.
Yes.
it is fun. It's a very it's quite a risky design for a club that even at its bravest tends to go, oh, we'll have just one half red, one half blue, or I think we committed to slightly diagonal stripes 2 or 3 years ago. That's just kind of as adventurous as we'll ever go. So this was quite radical. It didn't go down well with everybody, and yes, because of what's happening, you cannot get your hands on one now. You just cannot.
That's fair. Oh, hey, winning fixes everything. Pep says it all the time.
So in terms of a grading, I'm going to give it a B minus because I think it was very much down the middle, but the success on the pitch has given it reverence it probably doesn't deserve.
I would be terrified what grade you'd give it if you didn't win that FA Cup. And oh my gosh, you'd probably be out of here. Oh, that's funny. Oh man, who was I talking? When I was chatting with the Tottenham podcast for their season, they basically said the same thing about their kits. They're like, well, because we won, like the grade does go up, but other than that, we're not a big fan of it. And yeah, it's amazing what good feelings, because there's a third kit Man City had 3 years ago, and it basically just like a very standard issue, like physical education, high school type of shirt. It was just like dark blue with Man City on it. Like, it was super simple. And they lost almost every match that they played in those kits. So not only were they hideous, we were losing in these hideous kits. It was the fan base was losing their minds.
Yeah, it's funny. It's impossible not to attach that extra context and sentiment onto kits. It's funny. We're only quite a recently big club. I think we've covered it before. This run in the Premier League is approaching 13, 14 years. That's the first time we'd ever stayed up in the top flight longer than a year, 2 years. So when it comes to retro kits and the companies that specialize in classic football shirts, they were in quite short supply with Palace. They whoever was responsible didn't really have the nuance to understand which would be classic and which wouldn't be. And so one of the big high-profile issues that they have is a shirt we wore in the 1990 FA Cup final. So I think we wore red and blue in the main game, and it is a classic shirt. Then in the final went to a replay. That's how long ago this was. They don't do it anymore.
No.
And when the final was a replay, they swapped. So whoever was home would wear an away kit, and whoever was home, or vice versa. So
I love it. Yeah.
For whatever reason, our away shirt clashed with Manchester United's home shirt. So they produced a one-off away special Palace away shirt for this final, for the cup final, but we lost. So everyone that was around at that time doesn't want to see it. It's not Palace. It's really weird. It's yellow and black stripes. No one understands why. But because it's high profile to people that don't support Palace, they're like, oh, they wore it for the final. It's been reproduced as one of the classic kits, and every time someone wears one out in the wild, there was one sighted at Wembley the other day, and people were going, just muttering behind them, going, oh, why the hell would you buy that shirt? You just cannot. It's so difficult to separate.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's great. Well, this away kit, I mean, they kept the theme with the eagle, but instead of a bunch of tiny ones, just one giant eagle.
There's been a recent push by the club officially, certainly the chairman, to almost designate yellow as our official third color. That we've been red and blue for the best part of 40, 50 years. But with very occasionally there'd be a yellow away kit or a yellow trim on a red and blue just to jazz it up a bit. And the chairman's been really keen. He's vocalized that he wants to almost, I don't know how much you can officially mark that. It's just the kit color, but he's very much pushed, and he's called it Eagle Yellow, as if it needed a brand. So I think this is just the latest iteration of that. It's called the Eagle Yellow kit on the club shop, and again, it's slightly braver than for what could just be a plain yellow kit. It is a little braver with that giant eagle. still slightly forgettable for me. We've played very well in it this season, but that's not going to live in the memory for me personally.
That's hilarious. I mean, it's understandable. It is a lot. It is very much a lot. But I don't hate it. I'm also a fan of collars on a shirt. So I mean, it's a very timid collar. They all have very timid collars. So I know where people who don't like kits or collars on their kits. So I feel like that is a way to make both people happy. Where people who don't like the collars, they can be like, okay, it's not obnoxious. And where the people who do love collars, they're like, aha, I'm feel seen.
There you go.
All right, this third kit, black, and then they just moved the blue and red to the black kit. But oddly enough, it works better on the black than it does just the entire kit being made of that, like the home is.
100%. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think there's a reason that black football shirts and jerseys aren't that popular. No one seems to lead with them. And they are often, I think it's because they technically clash with so many shirts. Just as a color, it's quite a naturally conflicting color with other crests and teams' color choices. So they very rarely get to be worn. Palace tried to have it as a second shirt a few years ago, and it sold incredibly well, but it hardly was worn because it just collided with every other club shirt. So we did get a little bit more airing out of this one. We beat Brighton away quite comfortably. It was the start of our turnaround this season, and we wore that. I really like it. We didn't see much of it this season, but I did really like it. I think I didn't score the yellow one, by the way. I think the yellow I just give a sort of C-. The black away kit with the red and blue, the effect is a lot more strong. It works stronger and is less abrasive.
Yes,
working on that design. And it's a design. There's been a few other third kits like that, or even the second shirt where a more kind of aggressive pattern on the home shirt has been slightly subtle on those, and it's looked much better as a result. And this is the latest example. I'd give this a B+.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not been a classic year for kits, but yeah, I thought that one was the strongest out of all. And
yes,
before this cup run, if you were to look around at the most popular purchases in the stands this season, the black one with the red and blue, the third kit, looked like it held its own against the others.
Oh, okay. B- for the home, C- for the away, and a B+ for the third. Okay, well that will move us to the next topic, and that is the manager. I know you are happy seeing that Tottenham went after Brentford.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that... Actually, hold on. This is not for nothing. Have they got the situation figured out, or are y'all going to be in Champions League? Like, what is this whole situation? Like, what is... Like, so I haven't really locked into it too much.
So I think it won't be resolved until the end of the month, is what we've been told. So essentially, we are having to make a case to UEFA that we aren't falling within their multi-club rules and restrictions. UEFA, I think, don't actually... I think they want to do anything they can to not ban sides for competitions.
Yeah.
I think it's the last resort. FIFA are a little bit more carefree from what I understand. I think with the Club World Cup, they just tossed one of those Mexican sides to the trash without even being allowed to make much of a case. The story is about 2021, an American businessman, John Textor, who, I'll tell you a link outside of football, which might jog your memory. His kind of name first came to the fore. He had a VR company that was behind the Tupac hologram at Coachella all those years ago. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. So it was his company that was doing that. The company soon went bust because it was extremely expensive, but he stayed in that world, made lots of money in media and such. He had an ambition to get into football and start a multi-club model. So by the time he'd started speaking to Palace in 2021, I think he already owned the Belgian side, was trying to get Botafogo, the Brazilian team, which he now owns outright, and was in talks with Benfica. That didn't materialize in the end. But, you know, because Benfica were nicknamed the Eagle or have an Eagle as their mascot, Palace were, he started this holding company called Eagle Football Holdings, which kind of comes back later on. So anyway, it's his money that buys Palace, Mark Gay, Joachim Andersen, Michael Elise, Will Hughes. We have a very fortune-changing summer where we buy players that are now, but a majority is still with us and changed our lives. But it became apparent very quickly we were almost too successful for his own good. I think he invested in something like 40% of Palace. And then when he got more money together, when he bought his other clubs that he wanted to and got his money together, he'd go and buy out the rest. But the success of Palace initially in that time, the existing ownership structure kind of pulled rank and said, we're not going to, actually, we're quite happy with our stake. We're not going to sell more to you.
We're winning now. Yeah, we don't need the money.
Yeah. So he got quite annoyed about that and quite openly said, look, I'm not going to throw my toys out of the pram or the crib. I'm not going to invest any more of my money into Palace. I want to own this outright. I want it to be part of my model, but I don't have control here. Palace have got like a board where everyone's vote is equal, even if their shares aren't. And he's like, I think he said, I have the most expensive season ticket in the Premier League. He said, I have 40% of a club and I actually don't have much control. In the meantime, he's gone and bought Lyon in France, bought them outright. So fast forward a couple of years, he's been this kind of dormant part owner, not putting in any more money than he has to, not having much control, actively trying to buy other clubs, tried to buy Everton in the last 12 months, trying to sell his stake in Palace. The deadline for UEFA that they've set for clubs to get around the multi-club issue of two clubs being in the same competition was March the 1st. Now, Palace on March the 1st were in like the 5th round of the Cup. And again, have never had any source in the competition in terms of pedigree likely to win it.
Yeah.
Also at that time, Lyon are not thinking about anything either. Lyon, we obviously win the FA Cup with a week left of the season. Lyon, on the final day of the French season, finishing I think what would be the Conference League places, but then PSG win the French Cup, which means their normal place, which would be the Europa League, goes to someone else in the league. So Lyon get promoted in the 99th, and it's all happened in the 99th minute of the league season, by the way. So suddenly this conversation arises of, okay, have you done what you needed to on March the 1st? And clubs like Manchester City, which they did it with Girona, they've got all that litigious stuff done because they know they'll be there or thereabouts. And it's what's called, I mean, I'm getting too technical now, but as you can imagine, I have to be studying very strongly, trying to work out if we can ever see European football at the moment. What most clubs do, the Red Bull Group, the City Group, they do what's called a blind trust, where you tempt the person who is the party or entity that's got control at both clubs, temporarily relinquishes their power legally to a third party or associated party until it's no longer a conflict of interest, which is what City Group have done when Girona was in the Champions League. It's what Red Bull have done constantly. We were just very unprepared for it. And so there's a case ongoing at the moment where we are trying to we're trying to make the case that that deadline was just like realistically in a sporting sense, never going to be met, and maybe trying to push for that to be changed. That's quite a new ruling. And I think we're seeing in real time, actually, it doesn't really lend itself to surprise cup winners very well.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we're trying to make the case that the conflict of interest, i.e. Eagle Football Holdings and John Textor, have no control at Palace. Because he is outright owner of Lyon. You can't hide that. But with Palace, we're saying he's been going to the press for 18 months, 2 years, saying, I've got no control. I need to get out. Who wants to buy me out? This is really boring. I want to have full ownership, and I can't do anything at Palace. But his website says, I own 40% of Crystal Palace. I say what I like. His company's called Eagle Football Holdings. What else is there that, you know, he's currently in a case with some manager. He told this Portuguese manager who's in charge of his Brazilian side, he went, you know, when Palace sack their next manager, we'll bring you in. I'll see to that it can happen. I have the power where that can happen. That didn't happen, and that's a case ongoing. But the fact he's been projecting that, I think in part to inflate the value of his shares, but also to, I don't know, he thought he might get his way eventually. There's enough out there on either side that cast doubt, and it's still up in the air at the moment. All the noises from UEFA quietly seem to be that they want to find any way possible to not have to kick us out, but it's not set in stone, and it's chaotic. I think it's the thin end of the wedge in regards to multi-club ownership and how the confederations and the associations handle that.
Yeah.
Because I think there's another one where an Irish side's just been kicked out because of shared ownership for the Conference League. It's going to be a thing that keeps cupping up if there has to be a more definitive way that clubs can react to it and make the necessary moves at the end of the season rather than mid-season.
Yeah, definitely. I believe also the threshold is like 30%. So if he could just find someone who to purchase 11% of his holdings, it'd be fine. But I'm sure he doesn't want to get rid of what.
Well,
I mean, he is trying to sell, but yeah,
he's been quite. I think he's been a little bit mortified at the possibility that he might be responsible for Palace not getting their first ever for European football. Even though he wants to buy out the club, I think he wouldn't be very welcomed being the guy responsible.
1,000%. Yes.
So
especially through greed. Yeah.
So he went to, they had a meeting at FIFA in Switzerland a week ago, 2 weeks ago. He was there in person, basically saying, look, I will do what I can to sell these shares. I'm out. Like, I've been trying to get out. I will lower my price. And there's been lots of stories in the press in the last 48 hours. A consortium led that's got Jimmy Butler in has put a bid in for his shares. There's another one where I forget the name of the guy. He's an owner of maybe the Washington Jets. I mean, no, that's not a team, is it? But there's another guy. I think his name might be Woody something. He's trying to invest in it too. So we may well see it go. It's just about whether it's soon enough and whether UEFA are going to be forgiving to let us in. But yeah, what I would say is that doesn't affect, to come back around, the manager's score. I think he's done what he can this season.
Yeah, exactly.
He's now. There've been some Palace managers in history that have achieved very different things contextually that have mattered. We had a guy called Steve Coppell who managed us on 4 or 5 different occasions. Sort of freshly retired in his early 30s, no pedigree in management, took us to an FA Cup final, took us to 3rd place in the top flight, all buying kind of players from non-league and lower leagues for very small amounts of money. And then later on down the line, took over us when we were in administration, took us to the Premier League a couple of times. Here, like an incredible caretaker over a 20-year period. But never won silverware like this, and it just immediately puts Oliver Glasner, who showed last season how good he was, how well he could improve current players. Yes. The shaky start to the season was very much not his fault. That was very much Palace trying to recruit financially sensibly. It's something our club can't help but do. We know who we want in February, but it won't be until the last week of August, early September, where we can actually strike a deal that makes financial sense, because we need to basically that kind of under pressure negotiating to not get ripped off. So we got players very late. Not many of them weren't fit, hadn't been training in the summer. And then our existing squad had been at Euros, been at Copa America final in a couple of cases, the Olympics. We didn't get started. We didn't get going until late October, early November. From there, an absurd record. I think we lost 3 times in 5 months, which isn't really reflected in the league table, but we started that slowly. But he has been the trusted figure along the way. Any talk about him leaving when we were struggling was from outside, and so it's proved. As soon as enough people were back, we never looked back, and he's put himself. Well, the whole squad is now, but he's immortalized in Palace history. He can go. I am glad if he can hang around a little bit longer. If he decided to have gone to Spurs or another club this summer, he'd have gone with my full blessing, no grudges, just pure thanks and gratitude for that day on history. Yeah.
So what grade will you give him?
Oh, I'm giving him A+. I'm giving him A+.
Yes. I'm a fan of him. Like, honestly, depending on the manager and their energy, at the beginning of the season, I tend to listen to like all of the managers, their first like interviews and stuff, just kind of pick their brains and see where they're standing, or if they're already getting at it with media, those types of things. And he always popped off the screen, just good energy. He doesn't seem to be trying to like game the media. And then obviously the play was bad, but I was watching. Well, the play was bad. You weren't winning games. Let's say that you weren't winning games, but I wasn't seeing necessarily bad football. But I mean, obviously it was just the players were fatigued. They needed rest after doing all this running and things like that. And they started playing what they were playing. And like you said, the rest is history. And I'm super excited about next season because of the fact that these teams 8 through 12, 13, like they just are getting better and better because the managers are getting better, which hopefully means the ownerships will start trying to figure out how to spend a little bit more money. I mean, hopefully if Crystal Palace get in European football, that will hopefully help you keep players. Sure. And you can maybe add on and grow, and Crystal Palace can become another London power. Like, there aren't enough powerful London teams, but if you guys step up, like I was talking with my buddy in Brent, we did Brentford yesterday, which he was kind of hoping for Crystal Palace's downfall naturally. Yeah. But it was, just want more of these other London teams to kind of step up so we can kind of get these other London teams out of here.
Yeah, it's the Premier League is the Super League. You know, I know there's been calls for it. I think we've been seeing in recent years, not just the season just gone, that it is the Super League for the reasons you've mentioned. That mid-tier, even kind of some teams below that mid-tier, are holding on to players for much, much longer than generations previous because they can afford to match the wages in many cases. You know, Tottenham, the natural order of hierarchy and the food chain, Tottenham and Manchester United should both be trying to buy Mateta and Eze and Mark Gahey and maybe Adam Wharton. That would be the natural thing years ago. Mm-hmm. We can match wages on Tottenham, and we regularly have. It was a big thing, I think, years ago with when no one could really quite find a home for Zaha in his prime. Tottenham was an obvious one, but we were actually paying above. We were paying Zaha more than they were paying.
Oh yeah,
Kane.
no, he was getting paid. Yeah,
more than they were paying Kane and Dele Alli at the time and Son, and that's changed. And it's a big part. You know, you've seen it a lot more recently where the more talented elite sides or the more heavily invested sides, if they have a bad run, they can't really just ride it out. They will get punished in that period when they have players missing. You felt it a little bit at the start of the season. United and Tottenham are just, you know, on a slightly more ambitious. I feel like if Leeds were in the Premier League this season, just gone, one of them might have gone down. Like, genuinely, you know, slightly more competitive promoted teams. You would have had one of the big six or whatever get relegated, which I think is as much about how badly they were doing and preoccupied maybe, but also that middle tier are just punching at a totally different weight class than they were before. And someone like Brentford, who recruit smart as well, that's their way of, they might not be able to compete on signing elite players from the other big sides. You know, where some like Palace might be happy to pay those high wages, Brentford won't, but they will recruit a lot more smartly and get people you've never heard of that are going to be that player in 2-3 years. And it's made for this really exciting thing where I think at the start of the season, 16, 17 teams are probably saying, I think we can get something. I think if we play it right, a good consistent run, we can get Europe. We can get this. And that's new. That's never been the case. And I like it. It's made it a lot more of a struggle for Liverpool, Arsenal, City, United, you know, Chelsea. You know, you cannot have those Thursday, Sundays, those Wednesday, Saturdays where, okay, maybe let's rest people Saturday afternoon. That's getting tougher. It's getting a bit more strained. And some people were saying as a result, oh, it's the worst Premier League season I can remember. I don't think, you know, ask a Nottingham Forest fan, ask a Crystal Palace fan, ask a Brentford, Fulham,
I know, right?
fan. They're going to go like, no, like the cat's amongst it. Like anyone can get it now. It's less fun, I will say, that Super League energy in continental competition. You know, the Europa League was a bit of a joke as a result. That final is not reflective of the best sort of second gen in Europe. And the Conference League, Chelsea being in that competition kind of broke the format. It's not really what that competition's for. And I think that will be a thing going forward. I think every English side in the Europa League and the Conference League should really be getting to the semi-finals or winning the whole thing. So I can see the rest of the continent getting a bit annoyed, and you're seeing countries trying to be creative with matching our resources, matching extra income. Italy, Serie A just announced they're trying to get a game played in Australia. And I know that Spain have tried something similar with trying to get games played in Saudi Arabia. Their Super Cup competitions are being held in Saudi Arabia, turning them into sort of week-long tournaments rather than one-off games. There's still a long way to go to match the kind of TV interest around the world, never mind domestic interest. And this is the Super League, and it's I think you're going to see more surprises. And, you know, the idea of established teams, I think, is kind of gone. I think if you're an established European competitor, you're only ever a bad 3 months away from falling out of the picture. You know, Newcastle could have finished second, barring, quite a bad couple of weeks. Arsenal could have been right out the top 4 or 5 with like a few weeks to go.
Yeah, if there were a couple more games, I feel like they were playing themselves out of a top 4 spot. Yep. So
it's a fascinating league at the moment. What we can do in it, who knows? It does rest upon the players that stay. But the case I can understand is, I think Palace, a lot of these talented players came to Palace on the agreement that come here, do your thing for a couple of years, and we'll sell you to that. You'll platform yourself, and we'll sell you to that big team you want to play for. While we can say, look, we're in European competition, maybe we're like, look, it's fun, stay here for a little bit longer. They might be well entitled to say, I have just made history with you guys. It's not going to get any better than that. Can I go? And I don't think we could hold them back on that. I think that might happen with 1 or 2 this season. I don't disagree with them necessarily. It's their lives, it's their careers. They're not Palace fans. So if anything, their ambition, their needs in their careers are what really probably drove us to that cup win. You know, when we were in the final before, it was a lot older players, a promotion side, Football League veterans who I think knew this was their one day in the sun. Whereas for a lot of the Palace side that won at Wembley, I think they all expect to go back there again. Maybe not with Palace, maybe with other sides. So that does make a difference. And I don't think the club's going to step in their way to hold them back if they think they can kick on.
And that's fair. I would, I guess I can take us to the next topic. I guess not going to let me do the fun little transition, but that's the squad. And I mean, we'll talk about, I'll have you give a grade and talk about how the squad did last season, but I am interested in, because you did a nice little foreshadow about and expecting possibly losing a player or two. And I understand which players there will be. I mean, you kind of gave a nice little short list earlier of players who that could be. So yeah, let's talk 24-25 before we talk about the summer moves.
It has to be, so because of the cup win, I'm still going to put it around the A category, but I won't put A plus despite making history, despite being immortalized in Palace folklore. I think the start, whether or not there were other factors, finishing 12th in the end was actually quite an anticlimax given the ability that's there. And the cup was a huge factor in the running as well. We did evidently drop off once we got to the semi-final. Suddenly we drew away at Southampton and really kind of half-assing it against certain teams. And Glasner, he came out and said he didn't rotate at all in that time. And we do have very talented squad players. We brought some in. And I think that would have been the opportunity to rest some players when was needed, play it a bit sensible when the games were suddenly becoming 2 games a week, 3 games a week. But because he said he swore by when he won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt, he said the key was that I played everyone constantly. I kept the momentum going by just playing them through it. And it said it worked where in previous instances they'd fallen away because he couldn't keep the consistency of how good it feels to keep winning. So he insisted upon it at Palace, and it did affect the league form, but it got us over the line in the end. And the squad, once they didn't let us down at all. The start of the season was what it was, but equally we could have achieved more. Maybe that's a lot to ask, but I'll keep it to A. There's always room for improvement.
I like it. There's always. Hey, next season, depending on what happens and how everything rolls, it could be an even better season. It could end up being an A+ season. You never know. Okay, I guess who are you hearing about could potentially leave?
I think it's been Ez's time for a while.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think what's held him back has been a full season of the form you see at the back end of the last couple of years.
That's fair.
I think anyone spending that kind of money might feel like they want to see it over a prolonged campaign. There's been some injuries in there that have factored in why that hasn't been the case. He was basically playing walk-in football for the first half of this season because we didn't have any replacement for him and he was carrying an injury. So he wasn't his best self. And also, too, he's got quite a high release clause, I would say. Not gigantic, but it's about 65 million, I understand, which I think in a post-PSR environment, there are fewer clubs just taking that opportunity.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like it's weird to say this in the week that Liverpool have paid what they have for Wirtz. You see a lot fewer of those crazy fees now. City still punch their weight, throw their weight around, but I think that's they tend to front load their offers, and I think that gets them what they want like that. For Eza, I think this is probably the first summer where it's actually felt like he might be worth that. But the teams that I would expect to go in and pay that are Tottenham and Man United, and I don't think he will go to Man United. And Spurs, I'll be honest, I don't think Spurs was that attractive a proposition until the manager went. And I feel like there's probably a bunch of phone calls that were made in the last month that they're probably going to have to frantically call them all back and go, actually, hey, how about now that we've changed it up? Because the Champions League qualification suddenly feels a little bit more viable and valuable and something that matters now. They actually might do something in the league. So, yeah, I think he might. I think I would expect him to have an appetite to leave. Whether someone will come in and meet that clause is another matter. Mateta is apparently in talks on a new deal. That's been slow. Good. That's been a long time coming. But again, slightly older, might be looking around, thinking about his next contract. Might be his last big contract. could quite justifiably get a nice move somewhere. Once the merry-go-round of the domino effect of one striker leaving, there's going to be money and players moving around as one replaces, Sporting get their Gyökeres replacement, or Eintracht Frankfurt find their Ekitike replacement. Everyone's going to start moving around, and money will be there to be spent. And I think Mateta might fall into that space at some point. Oh, have I lost you? Hello. There he is. No.
Oh.
There you are. Sorry, I thought I lost you for a second. I've only could see myself on the screen.
Oh yeah, the technical difficulties. So I'm trying to figure this out. You keep going.
I can hear you at least. So okay, that's cool. You can hear me. I can hear you. We'll keep going. So yeah, I think Mateta might find himself dragged into that kind of domino effect of the striker recruitment this summer. But other than that, I think the one I've said from probably this time last year that I expect to go, and has strangely been quite quiet, is Mark Gay, our captain.
It has been quiet.
Has been above Palace's level probably since the day he came in, actually. It's been very clear he wasn't going to stay for very long. It's been incredible that we have kept him this long. But what seems to be the holding point is not his value. It seems to be the market. I think the teams that you would expect to come in for him are either in less European contention than us now, or have really tight, established, talented centre-back partnerships. So Arsenal are not in need of a starting centre-back half.
No.
Liverpool have now kept Van Dijk, which changes a lot for them. Real Madrid have gone and bought Højlund, coming through for the same amount of money, being 2-3 years younger and probably cheaper wages. He's gone to Real Madrid. So Højlund kind of spoiled that market as well. I genuinely think Gay is good enough to play for Real Madrid, but I don't know who's going to come in. I think last summer, the idea, I think he was meant to leave a year ago. We said, go to the Euros, play for England, start for England, be as good as we know you are, and then all the clubs will be queuing up. In the end, the only one was Newcastle, and they offered quite significant money. But I think we as a club knew, I think we told him, his advisors must have told him, because he didn't demand to go. So I think the advisors must have said, look, give it a year. Now in 2025, June 2025, you're a year left on your deal. You're a lot cheaper to get. And still that interest hasn't been forthcoming, which has been quite strange. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, he's a talented player, but I would hope he at least signs like one more year on his contract so he doesn't just run out and then Crystal Palace are out of luck.
To be fair, yes, in a financial business sense, that's probably best case scenario for Palace.
Yes.
What I would say is we are not we're not unknown to have just let a contract run out and go, do you know what? It's worth the money. We bought him for 20 million 4 or 5 years ago. You've captained us. You've played for England 25 times with us. You've captained us to the FA Cup final. Yeah, you could go on a free, whatever. What the hell? Play in European competition for us. We did it with Zaha. Yeah. We kept giving him new contracts, and then eventually, when it was clear that he kind of thought, can I go? We either had the money was too high, and we said, actually, the money that's the risk of us getting relegated at that time, we said, you know what, we're happy to let you go on a free. Because that 50 million that we might get a year to go, or fewer than that, less than that, is actually not worth, we can't replace you for that money. So we'll just take our medicine. And it may well end up being that with Mark Gay. Go play a little bit of European football with Palace, and you can go anywhere you want in a year's time. But they're the big candidates, I think. Wharton is an incredible player, but I think his injury for most of the season meant that, again, people will probably want to see a full season of him doing that stuff. And also the money, the fee for him is already sky high, and he's got 4 or 5 years left on a deal. So he will go. It just won't be, I'd be very surprised if it was this summer.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Even though I'm always here for the power of the players, like the individual over the club and situation, but I do always hope that, like the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation, and that's why that is so wild because it was almost obvious. I had Michael Reed of Opta Joe on, and he is a big Liverpool fan, and we had the Trent conversation, and Trent signed a 4-year deal for 4 years ago, and they wanted him to do 6, but he was like, nope, I'm only doing 4. And that was like the first time where they're like, oh, that's weird. Yeah. And just the more it would tick down, he just wasn't really answering them. And then for Real Madrid to kind of be like, hey, we'll pay you 20 million in January. They're like, we'll give you 20 million for Trent, which is a huge insult. And like, I understood why the fan base booed when the information came out, because he's one of their own. They expected him to be there forever, and for him to kind of leave this way, it shows his loyalty to his future club, not the club that is the reason why he's going to Real Madrid in the first fucking place. But they then the next week were like, hey, we're not mad at you anymore. We just needed to get these feelings out. And I'm like, I get it. Get those feelings out. Like, but also like recognize the greatness that he is giving you.
Yeah, I think particularly clubs the size we're talking about, very rarely have they utilized, I think, the free agent kind of market, the manner in which Trent signed for Real Madrid. That's only really been around for, I think, 25, 30 years. There was like a kind of ruling in the 90s that meant contracts could be played out that way and you could go for free on a few conditions. In that whole period of time, top clubs have never really utilized it in this way.
Yeah.
And I think it's kept the whole kind of economy of football going, actually, because they'll just pay people when they want them there and then. Whereas kind of going back to what we we're saying about the Premier League being the Super League and gigantic clubs outside of the UK having to be more creative with how they make money, Real Madrid's approach, Italy have been doing it for a long time as well. I think they pioneered it. AC Milan and Juventus were the leaders in it. But Real Madrid now have actually going, our club reputation, our name holds serious weight. We can just tell people 2 years in advance, hold out. Come and we'll pay you nowhere near what we could pay your club, but life-changing money for you. We can give you 10, 20 million pounds or euros, where it would cost us 100 million to buy you. So, we'll be here when you're ready. And I fear when Manchester City and Liverpool and Arsenal wise up to that and start doing it too, it's over for every other club in the division. Everything I was saying about Brentford keeping players for longer and West Ham gonna get maybe crazy money for Jared Bowen or someone like that. As soon as people just go, bring him up and go, hold out, just let your contracts play out, everyone's doomed. And for some reason, it's not played out that way. Whatever. I don't know if it's just, a football thing, still trying to adapt. I don't know I'm not a big American sports follower, so I don't really know how the free agent market kind of works over there. Is this a format of signing that you're more used to seeing in, like, say, basketball?
Well, there's no transfers, so like
you have to trade
trades. Yeah, so like, I mean, you can either trade player for player, you can add picks and stuff like that because we do drafts and things like that. And sometimes there's financial compensation, but if it is, it's like very minimal amount. It's like just to kind of push the trade through. It's never like, we'll give you this large sum of money for this player. So yeah, I mean, players do run out their contracts, but teams try to get rid of them in their final year to get some sort of deal back. Because if you just let the player leave on free, unless it's like a legend and you're saying respect and all that stuff, or they're not good enough to worry about that. They always try to get some sort of value for the player. Yeah.
I'm for the player power thing personally. I think it encourages clubs to. I think this recruitment strategy and the people in charge of recruitment at a lot of big clubs are kind of not stealing a living, but I think they're playing it on easy mode. And I think actually you see from other clubs that have to be more creative. It's possible. And those people need to be kept on their toes. And I think more power to the players to do it while they can, personally.
I'm with you. Okay. Next is the fans, the supporters. How have the Crystal Palace supporters done this year?
Ooh. This year they've been quite good, I have to say. The natural kind of excitement that comes and enthusiasm when you're promoted and this is all new for you, that does eventually wane once you beat Bournemouth at home once. You then the next season go to a game expecting to win them, and that kind of halves your sort of amount of games that you'll see where you're like just fizzing with excitement, if you like, and you're delighted with a 1-0 skipping down the road. However, I think because of the cup run, because of how we played the back end of last season, we've known we're in this sort of dazzling moment that we can just enjoy it. Even when the bad run was happening, there were murmurs, but it was never like turning on the team. It was frustration knowing that we were so close, but didn't turn on the manager. Certainly not the manager. I think a lot more grievances were towards the board and the club for being quite slow on their recruitment and trying to cut corners and such. And then when it's got into this run and we felt like the silverware was within reach, there's just a couple of moments that I've noticed that the rest of the world saw as well, which is kind of the tifos at Wembley for the cup run. So
yeah,
the semi-final, we had this young kid, funny enough, against Manchester City. The game where Andros Townsend scored that crazy goal at the Etihad, he hands over his shirt to a little kid at the front who takes it, and there's this really nice photo of him just kind of aghast and wide-eyed, and just an image, a perfect image of what it's like to be a young football fan and how magic it all feels. You know, it's not even sport, the magic of the whole being in that crowd, and you know, it's what makes you fall in love with the game at that kind of age. So to put that as a tifo is a very left field choice, but it spoke to, you know, I think because we don't go to Wembley and have games of that magnitude that often, we very rarely get there and just enjoy it. You can't help when there's something at stake. You start to think about your families. You start to think about who brought you to the sport, what made you fall in love with the game, who you wish was standing alongside you that maybe didn't live to see these kind of moments and had always wanted to with you. You start thinking about that kind of powerful stuff. And I think the supporters, certainly the ultras in charge of making that tifo, I think they knew that, anticipated that beforehand. And just so, rather than make an intimidating tifo, something that was directed at the opposition, it was about a very niche Palace reference that spoke to, you know, this is how we all feel today here. We all feel like this young kid who they filmed him around after that photo. They did some filming with him, and it turned out his grandfather took him to Palace. His grandfather then passed away, and the widow, you know, his grandmother, who does not care for football or Palace at all, then didn't want him to lose that association with the club and the match going experience. So has been taking him home and away every weekend.
Wow.
And you see them now, like having seen it, you see them, they're always front row, and she's often just sat there like, if he's happy, I'm happy. And he's got this kid just like living the time of his life. So it meant a lot, that moment.
Wow.
And then comes the final where we have the one which actually I think the wider world caught, which was the fan that passed away holding his two kids who were both there. Again, it's just like, who do you want there with you? Who are you thinking about today when that trophy's getting lifted? Who you wish was alongside you who couldn't be there? We had it where we were, because I went with my father and my uncle, amongst others, and their mother was essentially who introduced me to Palace. She worked there for a number of years and is a big part of their history supporting the club as well. She passed away from 2018, a while ago now, but they're wearing her shirt. She's who you're thinking about there in that moment, because you're like, wow, like this is a one time we made it to the top of the mountain. You start thinking about those people, and so you could see it around at the final whistle. It was quite a muffled celebration because people were just crying in each other's arms. It wasn't a very euphoric. It was a very like,
yes.
what do I do now with my hands? What's going on? So for that kind of alone, and it sort of captured the imagination of the footballing world actually, which was pleasant surprise to see. Because again, these are niche Palace references, but the sentiment behind them ultimately is felt by everybody.
Yes.
Particularly those that don't win a lot. So I'd say again, I'm going to go A. It could be A plus, but there's always room for improvement. I think A on the supporters.
Man, and like, how can you hear a story like that and not like just not only love the sport, but be like, yeah, this Crystal Palace people, they're not bad. Like, truly, like when we lost, it was like, yes, it sucks to lose, but it also, the pain is less because we're losing to a team like Crystal Palace, who have the fan base that they do, that this is their first big trophy for them to be lifting. Like, it's the, like, in yourself, and like when my ego immediately jumps out, I'm pissed off. But then when you think about the game and the community and the culture, Crystal Palace winning furthers culture more than Manchester City winning this to save our season. Like yeah.
It feels easy to say in hindsight, but I do, looking at all the coverage in the week leading to the final, and then obviously I got home, I'd recorded all the TV channels that had covered the game. It did feel like the world wanted us to win, and it kind of felt like on the day as well that there was nothing that like destiny was in. You start getting romantic and stuff, but it felt like it was a bit like when Newcastle won the Carabao Cup against Liverpool.
Yeah,
it was all about this is their day. Like there's nothing that's gonna all cut. And in our case, it was controversies. It was all kinds of stuff. there was going to be nothing getting in the way of us winning. Which is easy. Again, it's easy to say on this side, having actually done it. Of course. I did wonder what it must feel like as a Manchester City fan in the build-up to that competition, just being like, I've not seen a single quote from a Manchester City manager or player. There's been about 5 words spoken about Manchester City in the build-up. It's just all been about, what if Palace win? Wouldn't that be great? God, can you imagine if Palace win this? So you've been very gracious.
No, it was honestly, we all thought that we were going to win. I mean, a lot of the conversation, even from Man City's side, it was more so because Oliver, he had that quote where he was like, don't come, if we see each other again, don't come and play with the same style because, and I was, at the beginning of that match, I was talking cash shit. And I was like, Oliver talking about he's going to change things up and all he's doing is Route 1 football. All he's doing is kicking it long. That's not impressive. And then you scored and I was like, well, I guess I just got to shut up and hope for the best.
to give City a bit of credit there, because I think because that quote travelled. The game he was referring to, the 5-2.
Yeah,
I think you were playing without a striker that day. I think Marmoush was maybe playing a little bit deeper, and Haaland wasn't playing. So to be fair, you didn't play the same way, and neither did we. But I think the way that's been reinterpreted has been a bit harsh on Man City, actually. But, I'm not.
I loved it. I mean, and it was the quote. And honestly, the way that game started, those 2 goals that Crystal Palace scored on us were like perfect picture book, like counter-attacking. Like you receive the ball, you switch the ball to take advantage of the weak side. You move the ball swift, quickly, lead cross, give your player a chance to score. Yeah. It's just bing, bang, bang, boom. It's like
proper one shot, one chance. That's taken. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And honestly, those are over the last couple of seasons. Those have been the goals City have been giving up. Before that, it was like the Townsend goal, where teams legitimately had to score golazos in order to score goals against us. And we have just the weakness has shown up where if you move the ball quickly enough and just believe in your teammates, give your teammate the opportunity, you're going to score against us. And I just hope we can stop that because I don't enjoy that. But hey, in the end, it's a good again, there are worse teams to lose to. Okay, final category is the front office. How did they do last season, and what grade would you give them?
So I mentioned it a couple of times already. I think so. Well, I'll start with the score. I'll give them a B, a solid B. So I think they took a lot of the criticism at the start of the season with that bad run because of what we said, really last minute recruitment, not capitalizing on would have been the most obvious summer prior to this one now, the most obvious off season to support a manager wholeheartedly. It's so clearly got a world-class manager, and they're going, okay, we can get you a free transfer here, but can you go wait till September? We've got to try and get someone on deadline day, and that's the way our club has to function, if I'm honest, particularly with the ownership structure being as it is. Right, as I said, right at the top, we got an owner part owner that isn't going to put any more money in because he doesn't have control. So it's quite difficult to get other investment who see the same format and voting system and go, well, why would I put money in that? So they still took a lot of criticism, being accused of being very unambitious and such, and prohibitive to Palace's progress. What I have to give them credit for is that they didn't sack the manager. Palace. A lot of Palace's fortunes have changed in recent history. The reason we've stayed in the Premier League as long as we have, the chairman has been quite decisive on changing manager, and has got it wrong maybe once. And when he got it wrong, he changed the manager in 6 weeks. Like he was like, oh, my bad, and got rid of the guy straight away. So that's been one of our strengths. And so often that's meant being slightly early with it, like just not waiting until it's unsalvageable to cut a head off. So when things were going wrong and it was like, no, we're now getting to October and we haven't won a game. Aren't we supposed to be, oh no, we can't afford to go down. How are we going to keep all these players? They stayed strong-willed, and they did not even hint at suggesting that, he had 2 weeks or he had 3 weeks go, 3 games left. So I have to give him some credit for that. They then supplement him lightly in January with some players. In the end, we didn't really use them, but we could have maybe done some more there. If we'd have probably done a little bit better in January, we may well have finished higher in the table. Who knows? But I feel like it's funny. It's probably because of the European situation. There might be Palace fans now that say I'm going to give them an E despite everything, or like if we can't get Europe because of their kind of structure.
Yes.
That's nightmare fuel.
Yes.
But
yes.
I think out of sentiment, I still want to give them a B, particularly the chairman, Steve Parish, who has been with us since 2010, took us from the bottom of the championship to here. And I think all he's ever wanted to do, he's always ticked off things that he will leave behind. So whether that's been new facilities, revamp the stadium, a new academy, improved training facilities, stuff that will be there long after he's gone. The last thing that he had was silverware and European football. He's got at least one of those. He's got the silverware. I don't know that we'll see about the European football now, but I'm really happy for him as effectively a reluctant chairman. He was a fan that got asked to come in and save us because he was just one of the richer fans. I don't think he wanted to. He had to give up his job, quite a lucrative job in marketing, international marketing, to be our owner. But he stuck around and he's made history. So out for him, I want to keep it to a B despite everything else.
That is fair. The vibes are positive at Crystal Palace. I enjoyed this conversation so much. I appreciate you. Please plug yourself. Let people know where they can find you and the things that you do.
Oh, thank you. On X, on Instagram, on TikTok, I am Ojo Walker. That's OHJOE Walker. And I'm a regular on 2 podcasts. 5-Year Plan is the Crystal Palace podcast, the most popular unofficial Palace fan podcast. We're on pretty much around the FA Cup, we're on every single day. But we're on a sort of pre-season break right now.
Yes.
And then I have my other podcast, my own one, which is International Clearance, which is chronicling British-born, British-raised players, coaches working overseas in football. And there's interviews in there. Cover international football as well. Trying to think of an example. Michael Antonio deciding to play for Jamaica, for example. It's family country, but yeah, they're very much diaspora going on international duty.
Yes.
That we cover that. We find it super interesting, and we get some interviews as well. from some names you're familiar with, but some I always enjoy the ones more where it's some kid you'd never heard of that decided to go and play in Iceland or the Indian second tier, and as a result have some really interesting stories. Again, we've just finished for the season. We'll be back in the summer for that one, but INTL Clearance is where you'll find that one on the socials, or International Clearance on the podcast. They're my plugs for now anyway. Thanks.
Of course. Well, we have one more show tonight in the USA, very early in the morning in England. We will be talking Bournemouth with our good friend Ross Davenport. And then tomorrow, it's all Manchester United. We got Manchester United men and women. Then we're done for the weekend. Good job, everybody. Keep up the good work. So we will see you all soon. Until then, you know the vibes. Shady gang, shady gang, shady gang.